Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Changemakers LA podcast presented by LISC LA. The Changemakers LA podcast is a tribute to the people and the policies that make LA neighborhoods good places to live, work, and play. This is Salazar Ceasar, and I'm a senior program officer at LISC LA, managing our alternatives to incarceration work. And I'm joined here by my colleague, Shona.
Thanks, Stephen. My name is Shona Sen, and I'm a senior program officer with LISC LA, and I manage our workforce development work. I'm thrilled to be a part of this conversation today. On today's episode, we will talk to our guests about how they're helping the reentry population access career pathways. Joining us today, we have Semaje Stinson from Asian American Drug Abuse Program, or ADAP. We have Adewale Ogunbadejo from Grid Alternatives and Roberto Luca from Mass Liberation. We're thrilled to have three guests that work directly to help people find stability, build skills, and achieve careers, not just jobs, as they return home. Thank you all for being here.
All right, thank you, Shona. So for our listeners to get a sense of what it's like for someone to come home from incarceration and the often difficult path they face in finding a career, we designed this conversation to highlight a few different stages in that process, including the initial release, that process towards stability, the skill building required for people who might have been away a long time, and finally, the point in which someone actually sets forth in their career. So one thing we'll highlight here is that often what is lost in these sort of conversations is that while there is a huge focus on the challenges that the system causes people to navigate, we often lose sight of the experience, perspective, and drive that so many formerly incarcerated people bring to the table. So while we'll highlight the hard parts, we're also going to highlight those positive characteristics of an often misunderstood population. So to kind of walk people through it, first, the person is released, right? And so often people feel that they need to maybe immediately find a job, any job to provide, to feel like they're contributing. But meanwhile, there's a lot of work to be done to heal and to find a measure of stability. And so to touch on this is Roberto Luca, who is a program manager and citizen coach at Mass Liberation, which is an organization based in Torrance that works to educate and empower returning citizens with holistic, evidence-based interventions while engaging all communities to emancipate America from mass incarceration. So thank you, Roberto, for being here. As someone who went through this yourself and now works, day in and day out to support people as they come home, sometimes just hours after they've been released, and he really works to fight for stability and make sure that they're working through the emotional, physical, and economic challenges they face. How do you help those people that come home and are looking for support?
Well, I could literally give you two examples that happened today. Right before we started this podcast, I had an individual, 36 years old, and he's a returning citizen. He has been home 5 days, and he was trying to figure out what are his first steps. What is he going to do for employment, and things like that. And he was right in front of me here, and I could tell, and he admitted that he was confused, lost, and scared. And this guy, he looked, you could tell he was really very humble and wants to do the right thing and go in the right direction. So I had a conversation with him about the different resources that are out there, and then what we are capable of doing here for him. One thing that I've learned is that one organization cannot fill in all the gaps. It does take a community. And there's a huge need out there for the services that all organizations provide. There's not enough organizations doing the work. There's just not enough of us to meet the need. So, sitting down with him, one of the things was that he was scared to get on the bus, right? So earlier we picked him up. I had one of our drivers go out to his housing location because he's in transitional housing, pick him up and bring him to our center. He sat in one of our classes with some of our students. Today, one of the classes we were having was on relationships and how to have a crucial conversation, how to communicate with your family, how to start creating some boundaries and things like that, right? So he sat in that class. When I spoke to him afterwards, and one of the things he needed was his EBT card, his benefits, right? And he was like, "Hey, I don't know how I'm gonna get to the DPSS office on Grand." And so I told him, "Hey, don't worry about it." I had one of our drivers come up, one of our former alumni come in, and asked them, "Hey, come on in. This is Mr. Nam." I'm just okay if I could share his first name. And he was like, "Yeah, hey, you know what? We'll take him, and we'll sit in line with him at the PSS office, and we'll walk him through the process so he can get his benefits and get his things." And he was like, "And how am I going to get home? He doesn't know how to navigate like a Google Maps. He doesn't know how to, he doesn't have that wherewithal of transportation yet." And I told him, "Hey, don't worry about it. We'll take you there, and then we'll drop you off home, and we'll pick you up tomorrow morning so you can come back to the center, and we can continue moving forward and working in the path and direction he wants to go." But that's literally like a day one with someone who comes into our center. It's been out a week. So yeah.
Yeah, and so that sort of fear of the unknown, of coming home and not knowing, how to navigate the different systems, can really complicate a job search that often people want to jump right into, right? And so, as at Mass Liberation, as you help them navigate those basic stability things, how do you get them to that next level where they're ready to maybe go look for a job?
So what we have a couple options in classes. We have vocational and educational classes that we do, and then we also have our 4-week reentry course. In our 4-week reentry course, I call it life skills on 2.0, 2.5, whatever that number is. But it's the next level, right? It's the actual practice of new behaviors. A lot of our long-termers that are coming home have done a lot of work inside as lifers, going through parole hearings and things like that. But it's a different process to come out into the world and start practicing these new behaviors. They look a lot different. So there's a learning curve to that. And so we work on them on the fundamentals, not on getting the job, but on keeping the job. And that's what we focus on 100%, is talking about the things that may get in the way, of their professional development. And those things are, for example, like, what are their healthy, soothing behaviors going to look like? I'm just going to be very transparent, because that's how we are here at Mass Liberation. And you want to have fun. You've been deprived of human contact. You're going to want to have sex. You're going to want to be able to explore and do new things, right? So those things on the academic level, right? It's called variety. It's called mastery. And, it's called living life on life's terms. And we all want to have those relationships. We all want to love and be loved, right? So we focus on those things in our 4-week curriculum, and talk about what are healthy, soothing behaviors look like. What is harm reduction look like? How do you stay safe on a date? How do you stay safe going out and associating with different people, with meeting new people, right? So we go over a lot of that. That really gives them the basic fundamentals to begin to empower themselves and moving forward. In our 4-week curriculum, we also have the employment piece. So we do the mock interviews with them. We do the elevator pitches and those things, right? And one of the things that I think we're good at here is technology. We love technology. We have a technology boot camp that we put them through, and they learned how to do Google Sheets, how to do Word Google Docs, how to do their own email accounts. And that's when the preparedness really starts coming in the hands-on to learning how to create your own resume. right? We don't want to create a resume for them. We want to empower them to learn how to create their own resume, how to change their resume, how to update their resume. And that's the learning here that we do. That's the empowerment piece that we practice. Once we've completed that, then we're able to use our network of contacts, whether it be employment companies or employment agencies or other organizations and providers that do great work. And we can refer them to those job sites, to those job applications, and help them get on their feet and move forward. Our vocational and educational classes are in partnership with Southwest College, Southwest Community College here in Los Angeles. And we have a logistics class and a maintenance apartment technician class that we do in partnership with Southwest College. One is a 3-week program, the other one is a 6-week program. And they go through hands-on training, professional development, how to navigate different situational behaviors at work, right? How to communicate with your supervisors, how to bring up grievances to your supervisors, how do those crucial conversations look like, how they're framed. So we try to give them all the basic fundamentals to move forward into the workplace prepared. At the end of it, we also have the opportunity, because of some great partnerships that we have, and I'll give them a shout out, Change Reaction. They're a great partner. We have an angel fund with them, and they give us the opportunity to purchase for folks tools, phones, boots, uniforms, pay for DUI classes, and really support them economically to give them the best opportunity to move forward into the workforce.
Awesome, thank you. And lastly, my experience working in reentry, both with clients and colleagues, are like the wealth of strengths that folks have coming out of incarceration. They bring a lot of really excellent qualities in a colleague to the workplace. So can you touch on the strengths that the people you work with bring to the table?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're talking about a population that is hungry to do good, right? You're talking about a population who is resilient, motivated, educated, and prepared to be a reliable, loyal, and hardworking person. And for me, I'll use myself as an example. When I came home, my competition were the 20-year-old kids. All my supervisors have been younger than me. When I worked for Home Depot, when I worked for Amway, when I worked for other, logistic warehouse companies, construction companies that I started, I was competing with kids. And I used my experience, my maturity, and my drive to get me where I am today. Earlier in the podcast, you said program manager. Well, I'm the director now, thankfully. It's a lot of hard work, but and I'm no different, than our returning citizen population and reentry community. Like, that's what we're bringing to the table. You heard the slogan. I'm sure the slogan, "Make America Great Again." Well, the reentry community is going to make America great again. Because we're investing in our communities, we're giving back, and we're applying everything that we have learned throughout our lives to make this second chance at life and this experience much richer. And then we also have to build, right? We have legacies to build. We have families to contribute to. And then we also have a society to be grateful for. I'm a taxpayer now. I pay a lot of taxes. Am I grateful for that? Maybe not so much now. But, I know that I am now a contributing factor to my community. And that's what the reentry community is bringing to the table. Employers, a returning citizen brings value to your company.
Awesome. Thank you, Roberto, program director at Mass Liberation. I appreciate the insight. And I'll throw it over to my colleague, Shona.
Thanks so much, Stephen and Roberto. So after being released, Roberto talked a little bit about the experiences that people who have just been released face right when they're coming out of being incarcerated. And after going through a number of different, hopefully supportive services and programming, when people are ready, they're looking for a job. And they're looking for a job that not only pays the bills, but it also allows for career advancement, gratification, and respect, which are all things I think we all want. So Semaje Stinson, who's I'm joined by today, is a vocational counselor for the Asian American Drug Abuse Program, or ADAP. And ADAP is an organization that works to support Asian Pacific Islanders and other historically excluded communities, including the reentry community, through a whole person approach to education, intervention, treatment, outreach, advocacy, and employment programs. Thank you, Semaje, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Semaje, to level set a bit, could you explain the barriers that you've seen that the reentry population face in seeking a career, and how you at ADAP in turn help to train and support people who are navigating a sometimes hostile job market?
Yes, some of the barriers I see from individuals who are released from incarceration that are referred to me would be a lack of identification, a lack of ID, a social security card, birth certificate, a resume, transportation, interview clothing, interview skills, childcare. These are some of the barriers that I see, and something that I guess not everyone else can see, but I know through the lens that I work, I'm able to see the collateral consequences of incarceration. And these collateral consequences are legal disabilities imposed by law as a result of a criminal conviction, regardless of whether a convicted individual served any time. And these consequences create social and economic barriers for individuals reentering the society, like restricting benefits otherwise available to all Americans. Some of them that I could talk about are like adoption, like housing, welfare, immigration, property rights. But again, where I specialize in will be in employment and then professional licensure, professional licenses. And so again, this collectively affects individuals in this population, and it also adds to maybe them recidivating. And so that's something that I kind of work with my client and assess through an employment plan. So when we initially meet with them, again, I kind of look at some of these barriers that I have in my head, and then we discuss their criminal conviction and try to find out if the job that they used to do, or that all the experience, because that's what we focus on here, is the abilities, experience, and interests of our clients. And so if those align with what they used to do, if they still want to do that, then we try to help them. But if their conviction opposes what they used to do, then we have to find another route.
Thank you so much, Semaje. And you mentioned, what did you call it? The collateral consequences of
incarceration.
Such a great term. And I think that is such a all-encompassing way of saying what some of those barriers might be. It's everything. It's not just employment. And I think it's important to remember that there are so many other pieces to this puzzle. While we're talking about employment today, there's so many other things that ADAP is supporting their clients with. So What job sector, Semaje, would you say, or industries are the most accommodating to the reentry population, just based on your experience? And where do you see your clients have the most success and why?
A space that I've begun to work in is construction. Construction and the reentry population kind of go hand in hand. That's not the only one, but again, that is my favorite. The other one, which was been discussed by Roberto, was logistics. Logistics is becoming more prevalent. And then also, I would even say, with the lived experience that individuals have after they are released, becoming a counselor or being, drug and alcohol counselor, or maybe some peer support specialist or something like that. Those are some of the sectors and entry level positions I see. And then in construction, I could just talk about construction and logistics briefly. Construction, you don't have to have a college degree. You can have very little skills. Most of the skills that I have in construction are just knowing how to hammer, knowing how to use a drill. And again, those are skills that will get you on a construction site. Now, the issue with construction is the tools and the support. Okay, so just giving you guys a brief glimpse. In construction, you need to, you don't have to. In construction, there are union jobs and there are non-union jobs. In construction, you want to go union, but again, you do not have to go union. To get into the union, you need a sponsor. And so again, the work that we do here in ADAP is getting a credible employer to sponsor individuals to go into the union. And so again, it's not as easy as just saying it. There are a number of hoops and jumps and barriers that we had to red tape, I'll just call it, had to go through to work with construction contractors to employ our individuals with these little skills. And then with logistics again is another easy entry level sector where you can just go in by knowing how to move boxes, being able to lift 50 plus pounds. And again, you can work your way up through that by getting, let's say, like a Lean 6 Yellow Sigma belt, right? And then you can again be a manager. Again, these small certifications, right, in construction and logistics, you can obtain in, let's say, less than a year. And again, you can enter the workforce in those sectors. So I hope I answered that well.
That was perfect. Thanks so much. You mentioned, Semaje, some barriers and red tape that you face in working with employers in different industries. Are there any, what role does policy advocacy play in this process? Things like the bill AB 1816, for example, which is the Reentry Housing and Workforce Development Program, which wasn't passed this year. Why are bills like that so important to advocate for?
In the beginning, I didn't think it was so important. I didn't think policy was something I needed to, focus on, or even, I just thought the work that I do here, helping people every day, was going to do it. But I realized after working here for a couple of years that things get done when, the state, the city, when there are laws created, right, and it affects the system, right? And I feel like the system is broken. And so I think policy is really important because for instance, this bill that was not signed, AB 1816, the Reentry Housing and Workforce Development Program, it would have been a program where people get out and they get assistance with finding a house or housing and a job. And so I think that, again, if you are talking about rehabilitation of this reentry population, what better services than a house and a job? They're required to have those when they leave by CDCR, but again, there is very little help and policy that actually goes, into making it happen. A bill actually that I think just passed is SB 731, And I think it was a bill about post-relief conviction. And I think that's where a lot of work should also be focused on once an individual is released, their criminal record and those collateral consequences no longer affecting them. I don't know if you know, but a criminal record stays with you for the rest of your life. I mean, technology is so good now. We have data everywhere. So again, these records and convictions, they stay with you, and they should not, and they hinder when they should not. So again, these bills definitely, and policy definitely needs to happen so that change takes place.
Thank you so much, Semaje. And those bills and policies passing helps you do your job better too, and be able to do your job, because there's so many barriers in that process, I'm sure. But thank you for all of the work you do. It was lovely chatting with you. I'm going to pass it back to my colleague, Stephen.
Thank you, Shona. And now we're at the point where people find a job and are able to actually apply the skills and perspective they've developed, and hopefully have the support of an employer that values their labor and wants them to develop. Adewale Ogunbadejo is the Workforce Development Manager at Grid Alternatives. Grid Alternatives is a nonprofit with a vision for a successful transition to clean, renewable energy that includes everyone. Adewale's work focuses on renewable technologies and developing green career pathways in historically excluded communities. And he has implemented a solar installation training program specifically for individuals in reentry. Adewale, your work focuses on what many call a just transition into the green economy. And Grid not only welcomes reentry people into your work, but actively seeks them out and assists them in making a career out of the skills they learn. Can you tell me why you actively seek out, train, and hire formerly incarcerated people, and why should other industries do the same?
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, I think for us, Grid is heavily focused on what many call DEI, or we call EID, but equity, inclusion, and diversity. And it's really at the center of all the work that we do. So when it comes to working with individuals that have been formerly incarcerated or justice involved, we kind of take a step back and look at what is like the historical circumstances that got people where they are today, not just the individual, but the communities that we serve. And we understand that there's systems of oppression and a lot of other things that have happened prior. So a lot of times people didn't have a first chance, let alone a second chance. And we feel like if somebody served their time, then they've paid their debts to society and they deserve an opportunity just like anybody else. So, as a solar nonprofit, we would like to support the communities that we serve and help people get to the place where they want to be in terms of turning their lives around, and having career opportunities where they are able to take care of themselves and their families.
Thank you. And so, how does your approach differ from other employers in bringing folks that are formerly incarcerated in? What kind of supports do you provide? What kind of training do you provide?
Well, I think, we work with community. So we don't believe in doing it alone. We believe in a collaborative approach. So like the speakers before me, Roberto and Semaje, they are partners or collaborators within the ecosystem. They're working with the individuals when they're first coming out the system, when they're first coming home, and, getting them ready, providing them with the wraparound supportive services that they need to be whole again, and that they need in order to be successful at work. I think Roberto said it earlier, and it's like, it's not about getting the job, it's really about keeping the job, right? So we're part of the end of that ecosystem. Like once they've been provided with these supportive wraparound services, then they come to Grid Alternatives and they're able to go through our solar training program. And we're really focused on like the technical skills building where they're learning how to actually install the solar. And we have individuals that also have lived experiences that are within our organization. But by the time they go through the complete ecosystem, and they're ready to apply for a job, they're not just ready because they've done some training, they're ready because they've addressed all those different barriers, that needed to be addressed before they could move into an employment or a career opportunity. So I think what makes us, different from a lot of employers is that we look at it really holistically. We're community-based and community-informed, and we try to do everything through a equity, inclusion, and diversity lens. So it informs not only how we do our work internally, but how we, approach the communities we work with externally. And we want our organization to be reflective of the communities that we serve. So, whether we're training people, whether people are working for the organization, or whether we're preparing people to go out and work with other, companies or organizations outside of GRID, I think the philosophy is all the same at the core.
Excellent, thank you. And so, with that success, how do you leverage what you're doing and the successes you're seeing to push other companies to do what you're doing in hiring returning citizens, but not just hiring, but also paying them a competitive wage that allows them to build, a career out of it? How do you push others to do the same?
Yeah, I think to Shona's question earlier and kind of Semaje's, response, that policy is important. So when it comes to like advocating for family sustaining wages, that's stuff that a lot of times has to happen at the policy level. But I think it's also the responsibility of, local community-based organizations to come together and make a push. And then, from a training standpoint, it's like, how can we make sure that we're doing our job in terms of program and service delivery so that, we're helping to prepare individuals as best as possible to be the best they can be when they're walking into these, employment opportunities, because if they're prepared, then they'll succeed and they'll not only get the job, but they'll be able to move up, through the ladders as time goes on, and that will help them to also increase wages. But one reason that we're in the clean energy sector, I would say, is because we know that the clean energy transition is happening, and it's exploding right now, as you can see by the Inflation Reduction Act and the over $360 billion of investment that's going into clean energy. So we believe that this is a sector where there's going to be a lot of employment opportunities, for the next decade plus, and the foreseeable future, as we know there has to be this transition because of what climate change looks like, right? So it's really a great field for individuals coming out, that really want to give back to the community, right? Because they're able not only to have like these economic benefits, but also these environmental benefits, and being able to do the work that they do. So it really keeps them motivated, but it's also tied to economic opportunity. And, one of the things GRID is focusing on now is not just teaching people how to be workers, but also, working with individuals who have that entrepreneurial spirit, as so many do from the communities that we serve. A lot of trainees that have come through our training program over the years now have their own contractor's license, and, they're C10s and C46s, so it's like, how can we, again, look at it from an ecosystem standpoint and not only like train workers, but also work with individuals that are starting their own businesses, and what kind of supports can we put in place for them? Because we know if their businesses grow, they're going to come back and hire, trainees from the same system they came out of. So it's really looking at things, I think, holistically. It's about like policy, it's about advocacy, it's about collaboration, because, there's strength in numbers. So the three organizations that are here, four, if you include LISC, all pushing and advocating for, family sustaining wages, or, removing policies that, put up unnecessary barriers for, formerly incarcerated justice involved individuals, then we're able to kind of move the meter forward. So I think, staying within the community, being on ground and working with community partners to really move the agenda forward, I think is what makes the difference.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your perspective on that. Something else I wanted to ask was, I think we're in LA County, at least, there's a sort of unprecedented investment in alternatives to incarceration right now. But not just in that space. There's also environmental projects, across the county, water capture projects across the county, housing projects across the county. And, often there's talk from government about, investing in communities that were most impacted by, the war on drugs, 3-strike laws, that sort of thing. But often what gets lost in the shuffle is that the reentry population, the people that actually went away for this stuff, are lost in the mix. And so, when people are thinking of these projects and how to engage with this population? How do you recommend they make sure that the reentry population and folks that were most impacted are not just an afterthought, but actually engaged in the planning and the implementation and reaping the benefits of these large investment projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I think it takes partners, like who is at the government level that, we need to engage with, from a local standpoint, from an individual to a community-based organization standpoint, who are our representatives, and what is it that we want to advocate for to make sure that the message is clear and what we're advocating for, so it takes that togetherness. And, once the policies are in place, then you have the implementers, and knowing who the implementers are, who are the ones that are really doing the work in the community. When we first got into this work, back in 2010, I remember, being able to work with Homeboy Industries, and that meant so much to us as an organization, because at that time we were really small, and we were moving from Carson into the city of Los Angeles. We didn't have much presence, but we wanted to do the work, and Homeboy, was gracious enough to open their doors to us. And over the years, we've been able to, I think, partner and collaborate in a number of ways to where we were able to tap into some of that, government funding that you were talking about. For example, the California Community Reinvestment Grant, which was focused on serving individuals impacted by the war on drugs, and it provided us funding for 2 years initially, and we were able to, serve 36 individuals over that 2-year period. Homeboy was able to serve another, 100 plus with supportive wraparound services. But had those policies not come down in the first place, had somebody not advocated for the policy, then the money wouldn't come down, for us to then join with Homeboy Industries to apply for this money that would help us, serve individuals from the communities that we serve. So, I think it's working with partners like Homeboy Industries. So good to, meet Roberto today with Mass Liberation. Definitely want to know more about the organization. And over the years, we've worked with West Adams WorkSource, so again, I hope I'm not saying it too much, but it's like, the ecosystem, the partners, and knowing like who are the stakeholders at the various levels that we need to engage in so that we can move the needle.
Awesome. Thank you, Adewale. So like I mentioned, we also want to focus on, the positive stuff. And so this is for each of you. So we want to hear some success stories. You could tell us about a client or a colleague, who are out there doing the work day in and day out to successfully transition and become economically stable and get that career and get moving, So I'll go to Roberto first. Is there a success story you want to share with us?
Oh man, where do I start? That's what keeps me in this business. And it's, I call it a business, but it's my passion, it's my love, it's my care. Like, this is my community, this is Los Angeles. And we're an awesome community. And what makes us unique is our diversity, I hope to get to live another 50 years because I want to see the change, that momentum that we have. But I'll give you a great story. His name is Jordan. Mr. Jordan came to us after serving over 30 years incarcerated, close to 40. He was 67 when he got out. Never touched a cell phone, never touched a computer. And he just came to us, right? Released from prison into our transitional house that we have in Wilmington. And we're very fortunate. We have a great house in a nice residential area where it's safe. And, he came to us, and the question is, he's 67 years old, been in prison over 30 years. And we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to get him going? Like, where's his retirement plan going to come from? How is his transportation going to work? Where is he going to live? Like, how are these things going to happen for Mr. Jordan, and he stayed with us for a little over a year, right? But in that year, he began with a number of odd jobs. He went through our 4-week reentry class, and slowly we showed him how to use the computer, how to use his phone enough to get by. And then he himself, after gaining the ability to use technology and, got a car loan through a program that we have, again, with Change Reaction. Was able to get a little car, was able to navigate a little better the city and get around places. And he enrolled in the Metro training program with Los Angeles. And a few months ago, he graduated. He is driving a bus as I speak. He moved out of our transitional housing unit into his own 1-bedroom apartment, which is very nice, by the way. I was very jealous. And he lives in Inglewood near the stadium. And he has bought a new car. He's living on his own. He's driving metro buses for our community. And he's now 68 years old. And he's doing amazing. And like, yeah, he's really one of those like old school type of guys, still wears like a hat. And when I see him, I think he came out of like a 70s movie. He's always dressed sharp and, but he did it. He did it. And, I get emotional because here's this man at age 6 in his 60s. He finally created a life for himself, and it's amazing to see. He also just published a book, a poet. He's actually on Amazon. And Jordan, and his poems that he wrote while he was in prison. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, That's my success story.
That's beautiful. No, I'm over here with chills and tears. I ran the gamut on that one. Thank you. No, that was a lovely story. And I hope to meet him one day.
Oh, definitely.
What an amazing story.
We'll have him on your podcast.
There you go. All right. Semaje, how about you? You got a success story?
Yes. I feel like Roberto is able to see all the ins and outs, and you can tell from his organization, he's on the front lines, doing the work, right where he goes. Well, he may not go inside of prison, but again, he gets them right out of prison. Where I get them, they're referred to me from like their parole officer or where they're staying. So I don't have that hands-on insight, but I do have numerous stories. The one that's actually on my brain right now, I've been working with this gentleman since 2019. His name is Tin, and he had first came to me and was telling me his story. And he's the individual who was told that he would be serving life without the possibility of parole. And so he got out, and of course, when he came to me, he had everything he wanted to do. Lifers, they have spent too much time waiting, sitting, and as soon as they get out, like I said, he had a plan. He had a plan, like, here it is, Semaje. This is what I need you to help me with. And so, of course, some of the biggest things were getting him out of his facility, reentry facility. So once he got out, he could meet me more. Then we were working on supportive services like clothes and working in our blueprint for workplace success. So I was able to, meet with him for a week straight, go through a whole training with him. And again, he said, "Hey, Semaje, I'm enrolled in school. I'm trying to get my PhD." And I was like, "Okay, you could just let me know what I have to do." And so he did that. He was volunteering for an organization. One of his passions is working with animals, so he did that. And then he found another avenue in the work that we do as counselors. And he is currently the immigration supervisor for this organization where they work with immigrants who are released from incarceration. His same story, and he's again the supervisor. He just got that I want to say 2 weeks ago. And so I'm still helping them. Hey, I have resources for you. And so again, that's just one individual who like I said, had life without the possibility of parole. And then now he's on his way to get his PhD. Another individual I'm thinking of is Mr. Raul. Raul was one of the first people I helped in construction. Again, came to me, said, "Hey, I'm making $19 at a warehouse. I'm tired of doing this. Send me over to the Operators Engineers Union. Let me do it. I'm ready. I just need you to pay my dues." And I'll do it. And now he's making $50+ as a machine operator, right? Knowing how to drive and use anything on that construction site, he could use any machine. So those are just two people that I'm thinking of right now that again I've worked with since 3+ years. And just again like I said, they had a plan and I was just trying to assist, be of service.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much. And they're lucky to have someone like you, advocating for them and giving them support. All right, Adewale, bring us home. You got one?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to say to Roberto, your story, man, I could feel the passion in there. And that's definitely, I think, what got me coming back year after year. I've been with the organization for going on my 13th year. And it's longer than I've ever worked anywhere in my life. But it was because each year there was something that brought me back. And it was a lot of times that, there's nothing I think more fulfilling than when somebody come up to you and, you can see the change that's happened, and how happy they are when they thank you. It definitely warms you up and it makes you want to come back and do more, because you're knowing the work that you do has an impact. And it's making a difference and it's making a change in our communities. So, the two I would mention, because there's so many over the years, but there's one individual who was a lifer, like has been mentioned here. And he came out and went through our training program, and was one of our top trainees, and went on to work for, I would say what's a mid-level company now. And he's been there for, I think, almost 3 years, if I'm remembering correctly. But his daughter was so proud of him that she came to the program, and he called and he's like, "Man, I want to get my daughter in the program," and his daughter was a college student, but she was so proud of her father, for doing what he did and taking that step that she joined the program. And then he called us back, after the next cohort and said, "Listen, I need to get my 2 sons off the couch," so he got his 2 sons in the program. So it became a whole family thing, and that was impactful in itself. But there's a young man, who came to us probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. And he's a change maker in himself. He's done amazing things. When he was younger, he had made some pretty bad mistakes, and it got him in a lot of trouble. And he had to sit down for a couple of years. And he was fortunate to get out. And he went to Conservation Corps Long Beach. And that was the beginning of his transformation. And at the time, we partnered with Conservation Corps Long Beach to provide solar training for youth. And he went through that program, and then he went through our internship, and then he went through a year-long fellowship with us. And then he started working for a solar company, and I remember walking with him from our office, which is very close to Los Angeles Trade Technical College, to enroll him into, the college there. And just last year I was able to go to his graduation, and for me, that was like, wow, this is amazing. And today now he's like one of the lead, administrators over at, it's in Pacific Gateway in Long Beach, and now he's helping to impact young people like him, trying to prevent them from getting into the same trouble he got into as a youth, So yeah, I mean, people are ready to do the right thing, they just need opportunity, they need access. And it's amazing to see what happens when that's there, So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for sharing the stories. I mean, it's it's impactful and it's emotional and it's I'm sure rewarding, also very difficult for all of you. It's a tough job, but you put in the work and you get to see those successes. So thank you for sharing. And thank you for being with us today, Roberto, Semaje, and Adewale. I'm sure I speak for Shona. We're very thankful to have you as colleagues and friends, and I appreciate knowing you're out there doing it, every day. So thank you, Shona.
Thank you all so much for being here with us this afternoon. I think each of you play such a critical piece of this puzzle, and you do such impactful work. And it's been such an honor and privilege to hear more about the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to really help communities in reentry successfully be able to have full lives after being incarcerated. This episode of Changemakers LA was made possible by our sponsor, the Ralph M. Parsons Foundation. If you would like to learn more about how we support place-based initiatives for housing and economic development at LISC LA, please visit us online at www.lisc.org/Los Angeles and follow us on Twitter at LISC_LA. You can find the rest of the series on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Subscribe to hear more conversations about the people and places that shape Los Angeles. This podcast was produced in collaboration with Ronell Hampton, founder of Growing Greatness Now. Growing Greatness Now is a consulting firm committed to social and environmental justice.